Paul Roetzer, founder and CEO of Marketing AI Institute. I had a marketing agency. I'd founded PR 2020 back in 2005. And out of that was Marketing Institute was born, and I sold the agency, and I focus all my time now on the Marketing AI Institute and trying to help people understand and apply AI. The simplest definition that we have found that I do use in the book is the science of making machines smart. So Demis Hassabis is based in London. He has a AI research lab called DeepMind, which was acquired by Google in 2014. Brilliant AI researcher. And that's how he defines it. And so it's the best definition I've come across, because what it means, if you think about the software and the hardware you use to do your job or function in your daily life, your phone, for example, an iPhone or a Google device, the software and the hardware that make it up, think of that as the machine. So the machine is just a word meaning largely the software and hardware, and it's giving it intelligence. So rather than the human having to tell it what to do and setting all the rules, the machine can actually learn and evolve and make recommendations and predictions. So it's all the things we use to do our jobs becoming smarter around us, basically.
This is great. And you mentioned something that's going to lead me to my second question. Of course, as marketer, we are in theory familiar with intelligence or artificial intelligence, and in our practical life, mostly because of Google and BERT. Do you think some kind of initiatives of new search engine emerging, like DuckDuckGo or Ecosia, supported by Seth Godin or another marketer, do you think that those types of initiatives could really, at some point, impact the use of AI? For example, if we consider that those search engines could grow at a large space and take more space from Google?
Yes, for sure. So the way the search engines work, they're based largely on what are called large language models, which is what enables the writing today. So like GPT-3, which many marketers are playing around with tools that you can write copy.
Jarvis,
those are based on, so that model is from OpenAI, but Google has Lambda is their large language model, their main one. And so those models are changing the way people interact with information, the way they seek information, the way they create information. Mm-hmm. So certainly search engines on their own could dramatically change. I actually saw a tweet, I think it was this morning, about how TikTok could actually become a search engine, or Twitter could actually evolve to become a more powerful search engine. So obviously
Amazon is one today.
Yeah. So Yes, I think the future of search engines is up for grabs. And I mean, Google isn't sitting by watching everyone else build the future. I'm sure they have their own ideas of what search is going to look like. But absolutely, I mean, AI is already, the search today doesn't exist without AI. So what Google already does is powered by AI. And I think there's been a lot of breakthroughs in language in particular recently that could, again, create a new generation of search engines. So that is the hot term these days. It's sort of emerged, it feels like, in recent weeks. So generative AI means the ability for the machine to generate anything. So specifically for marketers, text and images are the two hot items. So being able to go into a Jasper or Writer or Go Charlie or Copy.ai or Hyperwrite and give a text prompt. I want a paragraph about artificial intelligence for marketers, and the machine generates a paragraph. So that is generative AI. It's a very descriptive term. DALL-E 2 is another example. You can prompt it to give you an image of whatever you want, and it generates. Meta came out with Make a Video, where you can prompt it to actually create a video. You're going to see this applied in all kinds of verticals. So I can text prompt, design my office for me in the style of a loft, and it'll build it out and put furniture in it and things like that. So you're going to see this applied not only in marketing, but in every industry that you may work in, your clients may work in. Generative AI is going to be a major part of the story in the coming years. It's a moving target, honestly. So when DALL-E 2 came out in April, and made image generation widely accessible. I mean, by June or July, they'd opened it up for anyone to get it, where you can go sign up today and start building images. It changed things, in my opinion. I mean, it was one of those, I've been paying attention to the AI space for 11 years, like closely. And there's been a few moments where I thought, wow, that changes everything. And I felt like DALL-E was a moment where everything changed, because now it affects designers and illustrators and makes our lives as marketers easier, because we don't need designers and illustrators to do some of that stuff, or stock photography. We can do it on our own. So I think that it's moving in a really interesting direction, where the creative and knowledge work part we thought was safe for a while. You know, I think that most people saw AI as a way to eliminate repetitive tasks and create efficiency. And I feel like there was maybe an assumption that creativity and knowledge were a ways off, and they're not. They're here now. And so now, as marketers, as consultants, as entrepreneurs, we have to accept that AI is knocking at the door. It is able to do many of the things that we do. And so what remains uniquely human is probably things like empathy and personal communications, and the ability to maintain and build relationships, and strategy to some degree. But creativity is AI assisted now. It is not a uniquely human capability anymore. So I don't know. I think that's why I feel an urgency for people to understand AI, because you can't comprehend the impact it will have on your job and your life until you understand what it is and what it's capable of doing.
And until you tested it, I assume.
Testing is critical. You have to experiment with it. And that's, I gave a talk a couple of weeks ago on a keynote, and I said, the difference between now and 6 months ago, or even 6 years ago, when I first started doing talks about AI, is you can leave this talk and go get tools and test it for yourself. You can get DALL-E, you can get Jasper, you can get AI Test Kitchen from Google. Like, you can go experiment with it, and that changes things, because now you realize the power it has, and you can start connecting the dots yourself of what it means to you, rather than me standing on stage telling you that.
One last very generic question. Hearing what you say, don't you think, and I'm really putting myself into the shoes of a content entrepreneur, to use the term from Joe, don't you think that instead of us not hiring a designer anymore, or not hiring a content creator anymore, don't you think that it's just going to be another way for us to use them and for them to provide their job to us? Here's the point. Understanding and testing all those new things that are coming up, all the tools that you mentioned in your book, getting into the metaverse, also into NFTs, into Web3, into all those things, is extremely time consuming at some point. So if you're spending most of your day testing all those things to figure out if it's smart for you to use them or not, don't you think at some point it might be better and helpful for people, designer, to use DALL-E as something to, I don't know, increase their productivity in terms of producing, or really as us to learn in and to do everything on our own without hiring anybody else?
I think it'll work both ways. There are absolutely designers, illustrators, creative professionals who are going to seize this opportunity to enhance what they're capable of doing, do things more efficiently, expand their services and offerings. So it's not that designers and illustrators are going away, but there are many things that you and I, maybe, as I know I'm not a designer, that I could not have done by myself 6 months ago, that I can do now better than most designers I would have hired, with no coding ability, no design ability, no nothing. It's all about just prompting the engine. And what I'll tell you is, I talk with these researchers and the entrepreneurs building these things. What we're seeing today is probably 6 to 12 months behind what they're doing in the research labs right now. And I've seen some of this stuff. It's the no code ability, the ability for the non-technical person, non-designer, to generate outputs that are indistinguishable from top designers is around the corner in many cases. And so that's, yes, where there are still instances where we want to hire out. I don't know what those are going to be, because examples like building a presentation deck, I don't need a designer and I don't need stock photos anymore. I just tell the machine what I want the image to be. Here's the words from the slide, give me an image. If I want posts, images for my blog posts, I don't need professional help for that. I don't need stock photos anymore. So like there are specific instances and use cases where the need for professional support is gone. And so I think again, as I said at the beginning, it's a moving target, but I think it's critical that creative professionals understand that this is coming whether you want it to or not. Like I'll say this on stage, my wife is an artist. My 10-year-old daughter is an aspiring artist. I am a writer by trade. I am not an AI person by trade. I don't have to like this. You don't have to like it, but it's here and it's impacting our careers whether we want it to or not.
Just an idea, like what I was waiting for you. How do you see, just from your marketing agency standpoint, some company like Shutterstock or eStock moving forward, considering AI? They have a kind of a big deal of brainstorming about their business model. No, what do you think?
Shutterstock launched an AI division last year and acquired 3 AI companies. Their images, their stock photos were used to train DALL-E. So Shutterstock's play was actually to become a data company and use all the data they had, including copyrighted data from photographers and designers, to train machines that could, in theory, replace the need for them. Unsplash does not allow AI generated images on their site right now. Getty doesn't allow AI generated images on their site. So it is that may change in 3 months. It may change. It's a wild space right now. There's a lot of unknowns and a lot of people playing catch up, trying to figure out what it does to their business model. But Shutterstock moved early. That is a great question. So we run a conference on this stuff, and it's very hard to find brands that are doing this exceptionally well and are willing to talk about it. But what you can do is you can look at the major spaces, like retail and e-commerce are two of the biggest adopters. So you can go in and look at the brands that have a high need for personalization and that have a lot of data and try and predict human behavior and outcomes. So we always look at those industries as starters. There's innovation happening within insurance, within financial services, within healthcare, within manufacturing. Everybody's trying to kind of target the same industries, but retail and e-commerce are major players in the space.
And the most successful vendors, AI vendors, according to you?
There's thousands of them, and it's growing very quickly. Yeah, so 2 recent ones that caught a lot of attention on the generative AI topic was Jasper just raised 125 million Series A at a $1.5 billion valuation. They use GPT-3 to write copy. I mean, in simple terms. Stability AI is a very interesting company. They just raised 101 million. It is not a marketing company, but they enable all kinds of marketing use cases. And it's an open source platform that allows people to build on top of it. There's another one called Runway ML that, again, not a marketing company, but is enabling stuff. I actually just saw something this morning, Infinite Image they released, which lets you not only generate an image, but then say, okay, now put a background. Okay, now expand. And then you can just keep building on this image with text prompts. From a more traditional sense, Adobe has always been a leader in the space. I mean, they have hundreds of AI features baked within their products. That's a major player. And then, I mean, the obvious ones like Google, Microsoft, AWS at the platform level are all building all these capabilities. So, I mean, there are literally hundreds and thousands of AI vendors building point solutions, though.
On your website, you wrote a very interesting article dated last May 2022. And you mentioned, sorry, I usually don't quote, but that's better for me. Stated that when it will come to AI, there will be 3, not 4, types of businesses in every industry: AI native, AI emergent, and obsolete. Obsolete, that's how we pronounce it?
Yes.
So 2 questions about this regarding industry. How does a marketing consultant, a solo entrepreneur, a content entrepreneur, call it however you want to call it, can do to be fit in the first category? What do we have to do?
Yeah, so that has become my
$1 million question. Sorry.
yeah, no, that's become my thesis on all business moving forward. And the idea is AI native is I look at an industry, so let's say a marketing agency or marketing consultancy,
Mhm.
and I build a smarter one from the ground up. I think about all the ways to infuse AI into my services, my operations, and I just build a smarter business. AI emergent is I'm a 10-person consulting practice and I advise clients that are, middle market or enterprise companies and in different industries, like how do I help them become AI powered, the emergent aspect. And then my basic belief is if you don't do either of those things, you just will be irrelevant as a business. Now it's not you're not going to flip a switch overnight and your business doesn't matter anymore. But the basic premise is if everybody builds strong brands, hires good people, has good operating models, like just the fundamentals of a business, but then company A has infused AI into their marketing, sales, service, operations, product, and company B has not, all else being equal, there is no chance company B competes with company A because you can achieve so much greater efficiency, so much greater predictive ability around outcomes and behaviors, so much better creativity than the companies that don't infuse it. And so that's really the way I see it is like you start and you look at your business and you say, okay, you can focus on the intelligent automation aspect where all the parts of our business where we have highly repetitive manual processes. Copywriting, content creation is a key one. Think about a podcast. All the steps that go into doing a podcast, from planning the topic to finding the guest to writing a brief about the guest to doing the interview to transcribing it to summarizing it to publishing it. Like there's like 15, 20 steps for every podcast episode. You just break out podcasts on its own and you start infusing a few tools like Descript and copywriting, you can save 20 to 50% of your time today. Like I could tell you how to do it just on podcasting. And so if you do
that, do you teach that in your institute?
Yeah, that's the stuff we do. So we have like a piloting AI for marketers course that launches in December. And that is basically the premise. It's like a step-by-step 17-step course of how you actually go through and infuse AI into your business. But we teach like you start with the things where you spend all the time. So there's the chapter of the book, the Getting Started with AI chapter, and it talks about the use case model. That's what this is. It's like, okay, we do podcasting, we do blog writing, we do newsletters, like whatever. And then you say, okay, how many hours a month do we spend on those? How much time are we spend, or how much money are we spending on our vendors? Is there a smarter way to do this? Can we save 10% of time here, 20% here, 50% here? Well, all of a sudden, you may find 50 to 100 hours. Like if you have a team of 5 or 10 marketers, you could easily find 50 to 100 hours, not by putting anyone out of a job, just by intelligently automating tasks that could free those people up to redistribute their time into another area. So that's the premise of the AI emergent is you just look across the business and you say, where's all the things we can make more efficient, and then how much time and value can we create with what we've identified? I can't get into too much detail. I'm talking with law firm right now on this very concept. So if you think about lawyers spend a lot of time reading documents and analyzing documents, and they can be contracts. Let's say an 80-page contract. There's very minimal need for humans to be doing that anymore. Like you can right now get off-the-shelf products that can read those documents, extract key entities, key data points out of it, summarize that data for you, and give you exactly what you need from that document. There's a reduction in need for attorneys because I could take let's say it's a lease for my office space. I could upload that to a vendor. The vendor can analyze that contract with AI to find anomalies in it that says these 3 points shouldn't be in there. These are outside of market norms. You should just go back to them and challenge. So I don't need to pay my attorney $800 an hour to do it. I can just pay $8 a month or whatever it is and upload like that. So if you think about all the repetitive manual things that lawyers do,
and you have so many,
absolutely ripe for disruption. Like
okay.
It would be very high on my list of industries that could get completely disrupted. The most immediate is the creation of the content because there's so many tools available to do it. So we use a tool like Market Muse to do the content strategy, which looks at our site, analyzes our domain strength, predicts what we should write or republish. Then we can build briefs and it'll say, okay, here's what questions you should answer within the content. So like that's fantastic. And that is more in the planning stage and the preparation. But you can go get an AI writing tool today. I mean, there are dozens of them, and start testing it yourself. Do it to create drafts, create briefs, write a paragraph, rewrite a paragraph in a different tone. Like, there are dozens of use cases within just AI writing tools. So that to me is the most readily accessible thing that any marketer can go experiment with and start to realize the potential it has.
In terms of tools, of course, here in the US, everybody heard about Market Muse.
Yeah.
Do you know of any direct competitors? I haven't seen many, to be honest, but I don't have your knowledge on that. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, not in the holistic platform phase where they're actually enabling not only the assessment of your site, but then building of the briefs. I mean, there's certainly features within their platform where you can go get point solutions to do specific things. But it's like any other marketing technology. There's people who build features or like very specific point solutions, and then there's people who build platforms, and they try and infuse all the different capabilities into it. Market Muse is definitely more of a platform play where it's designed to get in there and not just do your SEO and your metadata and things like that, but it's actually a holistic strategic approach to content. So they're a major player there. But then when you get into the writing tools, like I said, I mean, there's dozens of them, and most of them are built on GPT-3. Like, it's
so, and in terms of platform, precisely today as a content marketer, it's almost impossible to do your job. I mean, like when you are obsolete, meaning not yet into AI, it's almost impossible to do your job without at least SEMrush or Ahref. I know you have a AI and SEO part in your book, but my question is, would at some point Market Muse replace SEMrush and Ahref? Because you see where I'm going in terms of determining some topics and then going deeper into keywords and stuff. I feel like one can at some point really easily replace the other two. What do you think?
I definitely see them as complementary, whether they're integrated into each other or I mean, there's certainly things that that those two do that Market Muse does not, and hasn't built into their platform, that I think it would be common to have both tools. But you could certainly see where they're close enough that you could just integrate those capabilities. And I think what's going to happen is this tech is moving so fast, you're going to see a lot of integrations and mergers and stuff like that. Yeah, where they have to work together.
For sure. In your book, you define something extremely valuable for content marketer. Those are the 15 steps that we need to follow as a content marketer to integrate AI smartly. Of course, I'm not going to ask you to.
I was going to say, don't ask me to give you all 15 of them.
No, I'm not. That's not my question, because I'm going to make lots of updates of the book, lots of retrieving from the book. But what is the most important one among those 15 steps for you? If we should focus on one specifically, which one would that be? At the strategic phase, the creation phase, what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, the strategy phase is critical because you can go get a writing tool and start using AI to help you write a bunch of content. But if it doesn't fit into the overall business strategy, and if it doesn't fit into what you can actually rank for and perform well for, then it just doesn't matter. So I always tell people, like, I would go experiment today with the writing tools. Like, don't wait. Don't like spend 3 months building a big strategy and then go experiment. Like, just go get a writing tool, get a 30-day trial of one of them. And even if you have to pay $100 or whatever it is, like, go ahead and get it and try it, see what it's capable of, then step back and say, okay, what does this do for us? Like, we have 3 writers right now. Do we need 3 writers? Can it actually start to alleviate some of that? Or maybe you were thinking you needed to hire 2 more writers next year. And maybe once you test these tools, you realize, wow, we don't. And actually 3 of the 5 standard templates or formats we use for our posts, the AI is really good at. Like, it can do the how-tos or the listicles like 90% of the way without the human. So what are the things that the human is going to focus on? Is it more editorial? Is it more point of view from the brand? So I think strategy is essential, but until you understand how good these tools are getting at creating the content, you won't be able to envision how the human and the machine will work together in the months and years ahead.
That's very, very good advice, and I think we should all try. But that leads me to another question. There is so many tools that we should try.
Yeah.
That at some point prioritizing is really crucial, and also in terms of budget.
Yeah.
So that's one of my main questions. On a budget, this is a question I ask all my guests. If I give you today $15,000 to start and create from scratch a content strategy and succeed with it, how would you spend it? I had very interesting answers so far. I'm very curious to hear about yours. And I'm going to then right after dig deeper into one thing specifically.
15,000 for the year or just like a month?
15,000. You're an entrepreneur. You don't have a lot of money. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's the rule. That's the game.
Yeah, I mean, I would certainly get a writing tool, but again, you can get one of those for like $99 a month for an advanced version. You can probably get ones for $50 a month. I would get a few different tools. So I would get Descript for my podcasting and my webinars and my videos. I would probably get, a writing tool, and then I would figure out what the best strategy tool is, and maybe it is a Market Muse or something like that. But I mean, I would get my tech stack in order, and then I would figure out what my writing team looks like. And then I would probably reserve at least half of the budget, if possible, for paid promotion of the things I'm going to create, so I can constantly test and revise. So I think I always told people in my agency days, in a perfect world, 20% should be spent on content creation and 80% on promotion of the content. But 50-50 is even a reasonable target. So if I'm spending 50% of my time on the tech and the generation of it, I need at least 50% of that budget going toward the promotion of the assets. Because too often what happens is people create content and then they give up on it before they ever actually promoted it correctly. And so they think something didn't work, and it was actually a failure in activation, not a failure in creation.
Yeah, I heard one day that the value of a content that is not promoted well is actually zero. So
yeah, I don't know what Polizzi's answer was, but I could hear him like in the back of my head saying, like, you have to buy an audience. So like some of the best stuff I wrote in the early days of my agency back in like 2007, 2008, we had nobody was listening. There was nobody subscribed, no followers. And so you can write the greatest ebook, you can create the greatest video or podcast, and if you don't have a platform, you don't have an audience, it doesn't matter. And so that's, building the audience is just critical. And I know that's what Joe teaches, is you always got to, build that audience first.
If we as marketer, we would like to start with AI, what would be a good starting point from scratch? We answered this plus or less, but like really like going out of no AI at all, by what should I start right now?
You got to understand it. So we created an Intro to AI for Marketers free live class. I teach it every 2 to 3 weeks on Zoom. So it was designed for that exact reason. So what we know is the vast majority of marketers do not understand it, could not give you a definition of it. So what we do is in a 30-minute class, we teach the fundamentals. Here's what it is, definitions, different categories of it. Here's use cases. Here do I identify use cases. Here's what you should do in relation to your own career and how you should think about it. And then from there, it's like, okay, now it's choose your own adventure. You can go take some courses, you can read these books, but we designed our Intro to AI class specifically for that. You just need the base knowledge, then the rest of it makes so much more sense.
And how do you train specifically? Do you have a program where you train besides those free webinars to understand stuff? What are the options we have if we want to train?
Yeah, we have an academy dedicated to online learning. So we have probably 50 on-demand courses. We're launching a new certification course called Piloting AI for Marketers, which is a step-by-step learning journey, like 17 courses that walks you through the fundamentals, then goes through different categories of marketing with use cases and sample technologies, and then kind of how to apply this to your career. So that's like what we learned. We launched that academy in 2020. And what we've learned is, like, if you just give a marketer 50 on-demand courses, it's like it's overload. What they need, most people, they're at the beginner stage, they need that guided learning journey. Like, take this step, this step, this step. Now you can go out on your own. Like, once you have these fundamentals. So we designed this Piloting AI for Marketers as that step-by-step journey, where it's like, these are the things we know you need to know. And then once you know those, you can go off and kind of choose your own adventure from there.
Isn't that a problem to start with the tools to infuse a whole marketing strategy or a strategy at large? Just like be trained to tools, knowing that the tools will help you do your job, whatever your job is. Isn't that a little bit tricky?
Yeah, for sure. And that's why we always teach you have to apply it to something you do. So like what we'll always tell people is if you're an email marketer or a content marketer, you know what your business goals are. If you're
Okay.
maybe you're in demand gen, or maybe you just need to raise awareness or growth or whatever. So all we're saying to start is AI is just smarter technology. So if you already do something and you already have goals you're responsible for, then find tools to help you do that existing thing smarter, achieve those goals more efficiently. So you're not creating a need for a whole new tech stack or just to go get tech for tech's sake. You're saying my job is to do this and to create this outcome. Is there a way for me to do that in a smarter way? So like the script I mentioned on the podcast, like we know we have to put out a podcast a week and we know the steps that go into it. And right now we were paying $500 a month for a producer, and we had these very inefficient ways to do it. And then we go get the script and it fit into the workflow and made that workflow more efficient. So it wasn't just going and buying a tool. It was, we have a need that we know we could make better, smarter. Let's find a tool to help us do that. This goes back to that it's just smarter technology concept. Like you can use AI without having to go seek a bunch of knowledge. Like when you use Netflix and find shows, you're using AI. It's recommending things to you, or Spotify recommending music, or Gmail finishing your sentences, or YouTube recommending videos, or whatever it is. Like you use AI all the time. So all we're saying to marketers is use AI in your regular workflow. You're the domain expert. You understand content, you understand email, you understand SEO, like whatever your expertise is, you are infinitely qualified to assess an AI tool because you know what your job looks like today. And you can look at that tool and say, okay, what would my job look like tomorrow? How would my workflow change? And so I think that to me is like, there isn't this massive hurdle you have to overcome to start using AI. Just do what you're already doing and find things to help you do it smarter. Now, beyond that, it starts to change. Like if you really want to get good at assessing AI tools and you want to help drive transformation in your organization and be the point person that actually understands this stuff and can bring the executive team along, then you want to go expand your knowledge at a much deeper level and be able to talk about the business impact of AI. But I think for most people, it's just get a tool or two, get comfortable with the technology, and then start to think about the impact it'll have on your company and your career.
To reduce cost and improve productivity, right?
Reduce cost and increase revenue are like the two main reasons you would use AI.
Big vision question, and I'm sorry, it's not a short question. I'm just going to try to explain, okay? I wish to hear you about the trends you see and anticipate in 20 years. Here's the point. My generation, I didn't have internet to do my research when I was in 12th grade or something like this. I used to go to the library. I used to learn how to search in a book, make copy of the book, and prepare my work, whatever I was working on. Our kids' generation is completely different. They're going online. Wikipedia is the reference in terms of disaster, sometimes a dictionary for research and stuff like that. So all the time and process and savvy behaviors we had to develop as young people who was searching for something has been completely, drastically, and probably forever changed. And our children will never get savvy on those things specifically. But of course, they will be on others, downloading apps, understanding coding, many others. It leads to me in terms of education and so many issues, but that's another story. How do you see AI impacting our lives the same way Google and search has impacted our generation in the next 20 years?
So first, I would say that 20 years of progress, if we rewind back, the 20 years of progress we've experienced will happen in the next 2 to 3 years. So the rate at which the technology is changing is accelerating at an almost incomparable level. Like you can't comprehend how quickly this stuff's going. So I think what we saw in the last 20 years we will see again in the next two. Now, an example I give to make that very tangible is like when I was in college, if I wanted to do research, and I came out of college in 2000. So a year after Google was created. So Google started in 99, 7 years before the iPhone was created, 6 years before Facebook became publicly available, 4 years before YouTube, 3 years before LinkedIn. So like, if you think about 2000 to 2010, the innovation that occurred after I got out of college, I was still doing Boolean searches in college. So if I wanted to find something, you go to the library and you have to do all these if, and, or statements to try and find some information. Fast forward to like 2010, search had gotten pretty good. Like Google had gotten decent at finding you things with these, but you still had to be pretty good at telling Google what you wanted. Now think about search today, and it's like, it understands your intent to a degree. It understands all the past searches. It maybe understands where you are and the weather and like
context of the search. Yeah, context.
Right. You don't have to be that good at search anymore.
Mm.
Now think about that applied to the generative AI that we talked about at the beginning. So if I want to generate an image, I have to get pretty good at what's called prompt engineering or giving a text prompt. So I have to get pretty descriptive in that, like the style I want and all these things. And the same with words, and the same with videos. What's being worked on right now is to apply reasoning to these models so they actually understand the intent of the prompt maybe better than you're able to give it. And so 6 months from now, 12 months from now, that's what I was saying. Like, I don't know that we're going to need designers the way we do today, because the AI is actually going to have AI on top of it to interpret what it is we're actually asking the AI to do. So I would struggle mightily to try and figure out what the world looks like beyond 2 years from now. 20 years from now,
forget about it.
Most AI researchers I talk to think we will achieve artificial general intelligence in the not too distant future. And what could be 5 years, could be 10 years, whatever. But once we get to general intelligence, right now we have is narrow intelligence where AI can do specific tasks. General intelligence is like human level capabilities and beyond. And once we get to that, it's a complete reset button on everything. So like, you can go to the Google AI test kitchen right now, and they have a tool that you can experiment with that demonstrates its ability to do strategy. So I put in like, how do I write a book? And it actually generated like 15 steps to write a book. And I could click into one of them and it would expand that sub task out 15 steps. How do I create a business plan? How do I start a podcast? It's a strategy engine, and it's just in the test kitchen, which means they're 12 months further along. So if you want to say, how do I enhance a marketing agency business that's focused on the insurance vertical? There's a very good chance that within 12 months, someone will have commercialized a tool that will be your strategy assistant. It's inevitable. It was actually the use case I started with in my first book, and my second book in 2014. The intelligence engine was the whole reason I started pursuing AI. I thought it would be possible for the AI to be a strategy partner where I just gave it my goals and it output what I should do. And that's actually where it's all heading.
It's
wild.
That's really wild and crazy. Okay, the question that comes in mind when I hear that is, would be this is a stupid question, but I have to ask, because I heard that the same thing in Web3 and the Metaverse. I heard a marketer said last time that when he asks an audience of marketers, professionals, CMOs, and good people like experts, if they're aware of Web3, NFTs impact on marketing and stuff like that, very, very, very few are raising their hands and saying that they're considering it, like even knowing it, learning about it and whatsoever. So it seems like the train has some kind of a, long road ahead until people really raise interest and get into the thing. Is ostrich policy like kind of be a strategy for a marketer on the short term, meaning like, okay, I know there's all this noise about these things, some people are getting interesting, but that's not really there, we're not there yet. Do you think it's something really doable and conceivable in AI? It's just because I'm hearing so many people say, yeah, but those tools, those are games, you know, like tools for techies and people who are like techs, but those are not marketers, those are not entrepreneurs. Like,
Yeah.
what do you answer them?
I started doing public speaking on AI in 2015, and I feel like the challenge we had then to make people care and create an urgency was there was a lack of tools to go experiment with. So like we
Okay.
talked about at the beginning, you have to be able to hands-on experiment the technology to understand it. So it was slow. It was slow to get people to understand and to care. I feel like the last 6 months that has completely changed. So now I get off a stage and people are coming up to me like, which tool should I try first? Like, and then by the end of the night, I'm at a networking event and a half dozen people are coming up saying, oh my gosh, I tried Dolly, it was amazing. And I went and got this, and they're doing it and they're actually seeing it. So the difference between AI today and Web3 and that whole world, metaverse and everything, I feel like Web3 and metaverse are where we were in 2015 with AI. I can't get the people I know in that space to give me a tangible example of it or a use case that is practical to the average marketer. Yes, the big, the Fortune 10 or whatever are building instances in the metaverse and playing around with NFTs that go, lose all their value and everything. It's fine. Like there's always got to be people out on the edge doing it. But to the average marketer, especially small to mid-size, I don't see a practical application yet for either of those things. And so until those get to a point where I can leave a talk or leave a course or a webinar and go build something in the metaverse or go find a use case for an NFT like off the jump, and I don't have to do 10 other things before I can get that value, they're going to keep struggling to get understanding and adoption. I don't understand it. Like I have friends who lead labs on this stuff, and I just, like, no matter how many times I get into it, it's like, yeah, I just don't get it. Like, I don't see it being worth my time yet. And I think AI has sort of leaped past that part into the area where there is tons of practical application, hundreds of use cases, hundreds of technologies, and they're affordable. You can actually do it. And you don't need any training. You don't need a digital wallet. Like you don't need to take all these other learning steps to get there. So I would highly encourage people, you have to go experiment with AI now. It's moving too fast to wait.
Okay. Should we, just to finish, should we follow closely some major VCs and investors that are spending tons of money developing those tools for Web3 and Metaverse? Because it was a little bit the same 5 or 6 years ago, no?
Yeah. So what I do, I like on Twitter, the way I use Twitter now, the way I use Twitter might change with Elon Musk owning it, but the way I use Twitter primarily is I build lists of experts in a space I'm interested in. So I have a public AI list on Twitter that anybody can follow. I would do the same thing for Metaverse and Web3. I would not ignore it. I think there's going to be breakthroughs at any moment, but I would build a list of experts and I would follow them. It's not where I'm putting my energy because I'm trying to figure out the AI stuff. But I think it's worthwhile for people to pay attention to it.